Matshepo Matuani. I will be the chair for this session. Just reminding us that the theme of our conference is Securing Brics, a Transdisciplinary Perspective. We have had very successful previous 2 days with very interesting presentations, which sparked a lot of interaction amongst the delegates, and so I am looking forward to today's presentations as well. Let me not take too much of time and introduce our first speaker for the day, Ms. Kay Pashikina from Russia. If you are ready,
yes, I'm ready. Thanks. I'm ready.
No. You can go ahead and share your presentation with us.
Oh. Can you see my presentation? Can you see my presentation?
Oh.
Yes, we can see the presentation.
Thanks. I will start. My name is Kate Pashikhina, and today I want to tell you about BRICS cyber currency challenges for cooperation. And I want to start about my content. The first is definition of digital currencies and CBDC, development of the BRICS digital currencies, main features of the characteristic of the BRICS DCs, benefits of implementing the BRICS DCs, prospect for the development of the global financial system with the help of BRICS DCs, risks and positive effects. And I want to tell some words about the conclusion. At the first slide, I want to tell you about central bank digital currency or digital currency. This is a digital form of government fiat, national and legal tender currency. It is an alternative to conventional money printing. Central banks issue electronic coins or banknotes backed by the full trust of the government. For BRICS, different types of money can be offered as physical carrier of digital currency, including cryptocurrency, quasi-money, and virtual money and central bank digital currencies. And the next page, for the BRICS CBDCs is more cost-efficiently system of cash because of low transaction costs. And I want to say when the BRICS countries, the central banks of digital currency promotes financial inclusion. This means that even people who do not use banking services will be able to access their funds more easily and securely through the phone. At the next slide, I want to say somewhat about what the people do are thinking about why banks do not use system for the implementation and use a digital currency. The first problem is what is the issue is the digital currency markets themselves, and their instruments tend to be volatile. The four interesting facts areas CBDC have similar features to stable coin, or they will be able to have regulatory framework and will be paid by reserve assets, or for example, it's be gold or oil, gas, to maintain their value. And digital currency is able to provide direct cross-border settlement between banks for different types of without SWIFT, yes, and without a dollar. In nowadays, it's very important for us. And the next slide, I want to tell about development of the DBT BRICS countries. The BRICS countries include the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. At the first, for the beginning of 2022, the digital yuan was tested at the Olympic Games. In China, the Kyber yuan is being actively tested and almost used. At the next slide, I want to present you about more international experiences in the development CBDC project. We have countries who retail central bank launched, who piloting our retail CBDC implementation, and who test the many types of CBDC or cyber currency out these countries. It's Russia, USA, it's Bahamas, is Jamaica, Nigeria, Hong Kong, and other countries if you see this slide. And next, I want to tell you about objectives of the declared policy of the Brics countries for regulating this digital currency of the central bank. I hold our countries: Russia, Brazil, China, India, and Republic of South Africa. As a first, I hold a financial accessibility. This be in our countries. And next, I hold access of an international market. It be in Brazil, China, India, Republic of South Africa, and in our days, we know that Russia had many mistakes with international market currencies. And next, I prepared about efficiency, being our countries too. I didn't follow about a licensed use of money when it's more illegal. Our country, yes, is being legal for ours. And the next will be resistance about cyber currency. And I followed sovereign for our countries, yes. And in competition, I was in China. In China, the digital currency being actively of test and be the first who use this type of currency. Is this our market, national market? The next slide, I prepared you about what is modern digital environment. Is a modern system of international finance. Central banks are developing their own approach to the regulation of digital currencies, be it to form the ban the mining of national territory, and prior to allowing acceptance of digital currency for payment of tax, thereby giving such money a functional legal tender. Yes, being more legal for our countries. The next slide, I want to tell you about what be in 2020. At the end of 2020, 86% of the world's central bank were considered developing a central bank digital currency. To stabilization of the country financial system is very important after COVID-19, ensuring the availability of financial services, improving efficiency of settlement within the country. Yes, introduction of the Brics central bank digital currency or reserve bank will entail the issuance of electronic money by the central bank, which can also be used by non-bank financial markets participants or households and businesses in other subject of markets. The next page, I want to say about what is B, the digital currency for marketplace. The first, availability, safety, durability, and efficiency, instant calculation, and the cyber currency be ensuring the coexistence and the complementary of public of private forms of money is too important for digital currency. The next page, I want to say about benefits adopting central bank digital currency. The be economic operation, increasing the stability of the financial system state, a reduction of settlement risk, not only positive interest rates tied to the wallet of specific client, and elimination of liquidity and credit risks. For commercial banks are interested in the openness of the digital payment system is true. but they include of creation of new types of digital services and integration with other banks. The next slide, we show about Brics digital currencies. The modern world financial system is characterized by economic interdependence, free trade, and open border from the moment of capital goods and services. And we, according to the legal approach, for in Russia, we started foreign state and international monetary accord according to Russian law, and we have a many system of information of digital currency, sets of electronic data of contained. And now I want to show you about this transfer of digital currency between wallet and individuals is first example. The first example, if we have client A who orders a transfer digital currency by a mobile application, they give a notification of withdrawal of digital currency from the wallet of client A. And the money go to digital currency platform, and clients a digital wallet have this money, and customer B's digital wallet go to this transfer, and the client B give or get of money, and transfer is completed. The next slide I will what say about example of payments of goods, work, services with digital currency. This client of individual person who payment of goods by QR code in mobile application, they be notification of withdrawal of digital currency from the wallet client and individual client, and their money go to digital currency platform, and their client, legal entity or businesses get this money for their wallet, and transfer is complete. The next slide I want to say about a prospect for development of the global financial system with the help of the Brics CD, and for the global financial sector is first. For the financial market, increasing competition in the financial market is first. The ability for clients to access their wallet through any financial institution will increase competition between high-tech services and a financial market. The next is creation of innovative financial services. It include the use and distribute register technology will allow market participants to create. And next is development of new payments infrastructure for financial market participants. And the next I show you for this example for citizens and businesses. The first increase of access the wallet of any financial institution or service and clients. The client access a wallet and digital currency platform infrastructure. And next is reduction from the cost of operation with digital currencies, increase the availability of financial services in remote and sparsely populated areas, and high level safety of funds, and etc. And next, I want to say about public financial system. It's important for our countries, and the first is control over the spending and budgetary funds. The digital currency platform will ensure guarantee about targeted delivery of targeted payments of citizens and businesses. The next is reducing the cost administrating budget payments. The use of smart contract will automate and significantly simplify the administration of budgetary funds. And the next is the potential to facilitating cross-border payments. The launch of digital currency platform may be first step towards improving the efficiency of cross-border payments and settlement through further of migration with similar digital currency platform of central bank and our countries. The next slide, where I want to say about implementing a central bank digital currency for risks, may as the first commercial bank may lose or significantly reduce of attraction and digital finance, and also CBDC are quite and have some risk of cyber attack, and we know about this problem. And on the increase their cost of funding in commercial banks, and a result an increase in interest rate on bank loans. And some of problem and prospect of introducing the digital currency of the central bank may in commercial bank may be so expected for new funding and new system of producing this type of money. And the next slide, I want to show you efficiency of using CBDC's positive effects. The first positive effect is in increasing competition of financial services. Yes, is be so important for basis of cyber currency will allow financial service. The next is issuance of CBDC combining the advantage of cash and non-cash forms of money, the ability of market remote payments for cash flow, and next is stimulating all the process and digitalization of the financial system. The next slide is to be a positive effect is formation of Brics of ensuring financial stability, use a tool of providing direct support of economic entities for the government, and ability to use smart contract was important and interesting for in use and make it possible to simplify the settlement of contract obligations, automate control of the executions. And the next is positive effects is be insurance access to quality financial services for economic entities demand them, and increasing the attractiveness of the national currency in the face, increasing global currency competition. And my conclusion, I want to say, yes, the development of digital currency have many questions about what the state has the monopoly right and issue money. And the regulation of calculation of digital currencies characterized to be produced our market. And the lead of the Brics group, I know, which includes Russia, China, India, South Africa, and Brazil, plan to discuss the creation of common currency. And I think at the first stage, Brics countries need to switch to the use of national currencies in mutual settlements. First, we need to introduce cyber currency in these countries instead to new of models this time. A new model of currencies is be. Yes, and thank you for your attention. If you have a question, please.
Thank you very much, Kate, for your presentation. Very interesting, very insightful. Kate, just for the benefit of the audience, can I just request you to show us your face so that we can see who's been giving us this wonderful presentation?
Yes.
Whilst we wait for Kate to show us her video, I would like to ask whether there's anyone who's got questions from the floor, the audience. Thank you very much. Yes, welcome, Kate. Now we can see who we've been talking to. Yes, and any questions from the floor? Thank you, Prof.
So, Saturday or so, I can't remember, we've been here for some time now. We listened to a talk by one of our colleagues here that mentioned that they're looking at bringing back the gold standard for the currencies. What is your opinion about that? Will that not be a better solution, or do you think that combining both will be an optimal solution?
You're on mute. He's on mute.
Please mute it. Yeah, please ask it to them.
Kate, can you please unmute yourself?
Thank you for your question. In my mind, I think that as in our country, we develop a new concept of already being the information pilot projects and be new standard, or not some gold or others information of this type for currencies. And in my mind, I think that we have propose a new or soft currency based in new currencies of the Brics countries, who been some new specialty driving rights and new specialty of resource assets. I think so.
Okay, thank you very much. We also have Professor Gopal.
Thank you very much, Kate. That was an interesting presentation, and we noticed that it was really well researched, etc. So my question centers around the digital literacy in various countries, in Brics countries, and I think we all understand, and I'm sure you do know this as well, that we have quite disparate. We probably have quite disparate digital literacy skills and knowledge across the 5 Brics countries. So in terms of, if we had to juxtapose or embed the idea of digital literacy and combine that with the digital currency, what do you see as some of the weaknesses in terms of the broader population having trust in a digital currency across the Brics countries?
Thank you for your question. And I want to say when it's first of the idea we have in 2018 for creating such as currency for formulated by in Brics, I think the new this Brics country currency be of most have of the great opportunity for cooperation, and there will be a new such of types of the resource currency, and be in for specialty for our country be to some global at the global level for our central bank or reserve bank is due for interested, and for we have a problem our regulations of calculation.
Okay, thank you, Kate. Any other questions? Recognizing our virtual audience, do you have any question from the online participants? It doesn't look like there's any. I have one question. I just wanted to find out, you spoke about some of the challenges of implementing digital currencies. You also spoke about the risks. From your point of view, do you think that we are increasingly going to be forced to go into the digital currency space, or do you think it might be a long-term and hard process for us to get there? You can unmute, please.
Thank you for the question, but may you repeat this?
Okay. My question was, you spoke about the challenges and risks of utilizing digital currencies. In your view, do you think this is where we are moving towards? We have no option? Or do you think it might take us a bit of a long process for us to get there, given the challenges that you raised with this currency?
Thank you for question. It might, I think that it's not a long of time, but yes, I agree with some Brazil central bank and our countries have a risk of our cyber attacks and suddenly transaction. And in nowadays, in our country, we have some problem of this and transaction and others. But I think if we introduce a new program of this type of currency, we met the new process of bank of new system for further of new global system of market.
Thank you very much, Kate. Is it a follow-up question?
Yes.
Okay.
So thank you, Kate. So my follow-up question is, or an addition really is that, is there a probability that some of the Brics countries, in terms of the digital currency, will be more powerful than others? If you could please provide a response to that, and then I will ask my follow-up question.
Please remember to unmute, Kate.
I thank you for a question, but for may you repeat the question now for me, please?
Sure. So is there a probability that some of the Brics countries, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 Brics countries, will be more powerful in terms of using the digital currency in comparison to other countries within the Brics conglomerate?
Okay, thank you for the question. And yes, I agree with full problem with the issues about of the sales and the instruments be too volatile about facts, but in new standard of these Brics currencies, new currency, digital currencies, be as regulated new of produce a new system when we don't get our problem for regulations or volatile our markets, and be a new stage of recording to support in not commercial bank. It's be support in a central bank on ourselves bank in our Brics countries. I think it's so.
Thank you very much, Kate. We have one question from our online audience. Essential, can I give you an opportunity just to ask your question live?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I wanted to check whether looking at the developing countries or countries within the Brics, especially those who are still lagging, like South Africa, in terms of technology, in terms of access to technology, especially looking at the rural parts, how viable is digital currency in that particular aspect?
Thank you, Crescentia.
Thank you for your question, and I want to say when the digital money to able provide a direct cross-border settlement between our banks, and the digital currency be so for a new form of government-certified currencies for conventional money, and they have a new system of types of money can be offered physical of career of including the new form and the development for new system of digital currencies process.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? It doesn't look like there are any other questions, so let me take this opportunity, Kate, to thank you very much for your presentation. And
thank you. Thank you for attention.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker then is Ms. O. Kapa. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay, good morning. So today I'll be taking through dialogues around responses to cybersecurity threats and tackling cyber emergencies in Brics nations. So the contents will go through the introduction, cyber threats, cybersecurity in Brics nations, the threats and their impacts, policies and implementations, and gauge the effectiveness of the policies that are in place, challenges of implementing these policies, and some recommendations. So currently we're in a digital world where most of our activities are connected to technology, whether communication or even the cars that we use has technology in place. And as such, we have physical and virtual presence, which we need to secure. And that's why we need cyber security. So cyber security can be loosely defined as a practice of protecting devices. It can be the protection of your information to stop the disruption of services, or even damages which can influence the damage of your reputation or even your assets. So when you're talking about cyber security, there are threats that always exist, and cyber criminals look for vulnerabilities to exploit. And once it's successful, that is when we get to see the effect of what's happening. So cyber threats in itself is all about an attempt to damage, which can either be successful or not. So these are just 3 types of cyber threats that are popular. There are much more versions of this. So in a summary, phishing attacks are a form of deception, whether an authentic website has been mirrored or cloned to deceive the person who is using their information in there. And you also have the famous one, which is a love attack, where people claim their undying love to the other person just to benefit financially from the other person. So that's a form of cyber attack, which is phishing. And most times it's referred to as social engineering. These are marketers in the making. They know how to communicate with people and are very patient when doing this. So we also have the malware, which is malicious software attacks. So some of them are obvious and some are not so obvious. I think the most obvious ones when it comes to malware attacks are the ones who slow down the process or the processing speed of your computer. Some of them can be silent on your computer, such as spywares, which can take screenshots of your computer while you're inputting your passwords. So those also occur. Then we have the distributed denial of service attacks. This affects infrastructures such as your server. So you have an hacker who recruits other computers, whether knowingly or unknowingly, on a network, and focus lots of attack requests from a particular server. And once the server gets to a deadlock of too much requests, it shuts down. So legitimate requests do not go through. So these are some of the major cyber threats that we do see. So the reason why we're talking about cyber security this morning is towards cybersecurity response, the way been handled amongst the Brics nations. And these are countries with good economic standing and also hoping to be better. So when you look at this particular image, you'd see a combination of countries that are widely targeted and some that are least targeted. So on the African continent, South Africa is one of the most highly targeted, similar to Brazil. We have Russia, India, and China. So this image is actually subjective to the time of when it was created. This can easily change because certain events can prompt higher targets depending on the activity around the world. So some of the prominent cyber threats that we've seen amongst the Brics nation is the attack on the Indian power grid in 2017. It affected thousands of households and the loss of over $3 billion to Brazilian banks in 2018. We also have the hacking of the Chinese military database, theft of South African banking details also, and the non-Petya malware attack on Russia in 2017. So when you look at the diagram below, we can see from over the years, non-critical infrastructure has always been the main target as opposed to critical infrastructure. So the critical infrastructure are in the deep blue colors. But over the past few years, we can see the rise in the targets towards critical infrastructures also. So no one is left out when it comes to targets of cyber criminals. So from the instances of cyber threats that have occurred, some of the impacts on these nations have been financial loss of different magnitudes, information theft, both personal for organizations and even governments, reputation damage. So if the bank loses your information or there's a data breach, their reputation is going to be damaged if reported, and that leads to lack of trust. And you also have the denial of service attack. So the non-Petya attack in Russia affected lots of computer systems, which actually brought down services and denied people of resources that they needed. So we're going to look at the cybersecurity policies and implementation. This looks at existing efforts, whether through implemented policies or the way they are being used. So the first country in here is Brazil. Brazil is an economic power in South America. And as such, we'll first look at the aspect of cybersecurity in Brazil. So there is a growing awareness for cybersecurity because phishing attacks are prominent in there, especially bank scams. It's so hard to tell apart an authentic bank message from those of a scammer. So even the general public are aware of this, but this doesn't necessarily translate to compliance. So also, they are increasingly becoming a target for cyber criminals due to their growing economy and their increasing use of technology, that is technological adoption. So I'll just mention two of the existing policies that they have. So they have the civil rights framework for the internet to protect whatever it is that you're transferring, let's say receiving information, sending out information, who stores your data, and how it's being disposed. Similarly, there's a general data protection law to protect personal data of individuals, whether it's with organizations or with even other individuals such as yourself. So Russia is another country which has serious, a big digital presence when it comes to cybersecurity. When we talk about aspects of cybersecurity in Russia, Russia has a level of censorship when it comes to what goes on their internet, and there's a level of restrictions that does happen behind the scene. And as a form of defense, Russia practices state-sponsored hacking as a form of defense, the same way you have physical defense, where you have armored tanks, ammunition. Russia has the cybersecurity units, which actually helps to protect their cyberspace using this method. So because of these activities, they are seen as an international threat in terms of cybersecurity. And we can't ignore the fact that there is something called cyber warfare, which countries actually settle their disputes through cyber hacking events. So I'm going to mention just 3 of the 5 federal laws that exist in Russia. So they have the Information Protection and Data Security Law. They also have one for the security of critical information infrastructure, which can be linked to your telecommunication organizations and the way they protect those information that you keep with them, and also a personal data law. So India is another major player in technology in the world. And India is has a big economy that is also growing. They are well known in the tech industry. However, when you look at the percentage of those who truly have the skill in comparison to their population, it doesn't, the skilled people who are cybersecurity experts, they are not enough to service the protection of the country. So it's one of the ways in which you look at it, and we have some people who are skilled and they do not use it positively. So 3 policies that are existing right now are your Information Technology Act, your National Cybersecurity Policies, which helps to create more framework and polish the existing cybersecurity frameworks that are in the country, and we also have a personal data protection bill. So we have China, which is a leading nation, one of the leading nations when it comes to innovative technology. China also has government control when it comes to their internet. Their internet censorship is stronger than those of Russia. And they also add some credit or positive systems for the citizens, which is linked to their cybersecurity compliance. So there's a high-level monitoring and censorship in that space. And they also practice state-sponsored hacking as a form of defense. So these are 3 policies and implementations. Policies that have been implemented in China. They have a cybersecurity law. They have the national intelligence law, which, although it's on the legal side, but it also covers cybersecurity. And they have the electronic signature law, where you can't deny that you've done something digitally if you can be linked to a device or you have a digital footprint which links something to you. So also we have South Africa, which is an economic power on the African continent. So due to its economic growth, we have seen an increase in ransomware attacks in the recent years, especially with the start of COVID, where you have ransomware COVID attacks where people pretend to have a COVID campaign, NGO campaign for people to donate, only for people to be swindled out of their monies. And sometimes your information can also be encrypted if they get into your computer, and also request for a ransom amount in return. It can be $400, it can be way more. And because of this, the government has created some initiatives to push for the POPI Act, which was enforced in the last few years to ensure that organizations and individuals are aware of how their information are being used and can question the limits. However, it's still, this awareness is still subjected to an awareness level, which can be broken down to educational level. Even people who are educated, some do not know the extent of the implication of what being relaxed with your cyber security means. And compliance can also be subjective, and some people who even know are feel the stress of putting the compliance in place is too much. So they let go of the important activities. So I've discussed the POPI Act, which is the Protection of Private Information Act. It tells organizations that they should only use data for what they collected it for and not beyond that, and also manage and store individuals' data the right way. We also have our cyber crimes and cyber security bills, and also another act to protect information infrastructure, which also links to our telecommunication companies. So from all the implementations of the policies that we've discussed so far, some of them are similar. We can see a similarity in Personal Protection Data Act or laws across the countries. However, in the last summit, there was a proposal towards a practical cooperation for ICT security. This is because laws between countries can be different, and what works in one country may not be feasible in another country. So there's a need to have a practical level of solution, which has to do with the collaboration that is in place. So for the effectiveness of cybersecurity policies amongst Brics nations, this is just an indicator to see if some of these policies have been effective. So here are data from the first quarter of 2021. Please note, this is subjective to change. Each research organization has criteria in which they use to measure this. So it's usually law compliance, technological infrastructure, the compliance level, how long it has been in place, and success of data breach. So you notice even from Russia here, the first quarter we had high level success of data breaches. It went down a bit in the second quarter, went up again in the third quarter. So when you look at the overall picture from one country to the other, the consistency in data breach is not across board. Some quarters more than others will be more. So please don't consider the first quarter of 2023 because we have not yet reached the end of March. So this does not reflect the best results. So the effectiveness is not consistent, and this can be likened to the fact that organizations or even countries put policies in place but do not follow through to monitor effectiveness. You don't just secure yourself one time and not see if it's effective or be consistent with what you're doing or improve on your security, because you need to keep assessing the effectiveness. So the other bar chart here does not include South Africa, because if you note, according to the global ranking, Russia is number 2 in the total number of data breaches. China is number 3, Brazil number 6, India number 8, and South Africa is number 39. So 4 of the 5 BRICS countries are in the top 10 most targeted countries, and they face large amount of data breaches. So when you look at the bar chart here, it takes the first 10 in the world, the top 10 in the world. So in the first quarter, I'm just going to look at the first the quarters of last year and see those BRICS countries that are in the top 10 most targeted countries where they experience high level of data breaches. So we have Russia, which has over 50 million. We have Brazil in number 3. We have India in here. If you look at the second quarter too, Russia, China, Brazil are the top 3. And India comes in at number 6. And the third quarter, similarly, Russia, China, Brazil. We don't have India. And in the fourth quarter, China, then we have Russia in 3rd, Brazil in 6th, followed by India. So you can see consistently, most of the nations in the BRICS group are being targeted and experience high level of cybersecurity, regardless of what they've implemented in place. So what are the challenges of cybersecurity policies and implementations that exist? Number 1 is the scarcity of well-trained experts in the field. As much as they have hackers that are out there stealing information, the ratio of the experts that are needed in the field is not enough to serve the population. Then technology is changing at a very rapid rate. And as such, laws and policies need to evolve at a very fast rate. Now we have AI that can also create malwares. So the cyber criminal doesn't need to know how to create a malware from scratch. We also have to balance security and privacy. So you have countries whereby if they want to protect their citizens, they ask them, okay, you need to allow us to monitor your digital movement or your digital footprint in order to be able to secure or protect you well. So there is a need to balance security and privacy. And sometimes citizens have to sacrifice their privacy for cyber security. Then we also have lack of clarity on what to do. There are organizations who look through all the policies and they are not sure about the clear process on how to handle cyber security or cyber threats or cyber attack incidents and follow through with the law. So also economic constraints. Each of the countries we have in BRICS do not have the same financial strength. For example, Brazil and South Africa may not invest as much money as China and Russia will when it comes to cybersecurity, because cybersecurity is not cheap. And the priorities of such nations when it comes to their budgets may not put cybersecurity at the top. So some of the recommendations that can be proposed is to encourage more international cooperation, that is, share your best practices, what works for you, and the other nations can also research this and see where they can adopt. So when you look at the developed common standards, I would say it's more of adopting some standards that works for each of the nations, because legal laws do not necessarily align on a linear level. Then we also have to promote preventive measures. You don't need to wait to be hacked before you do something. You have to be proactive. We have organizations that have cyber security insurance to help protect in case of the data breach. We also need transparency. which is almost impossible to achieve because most countries will still keep certain things secret, even from within their own country. So a level of transparency is advised to share innovative findings or information that can help other countries. Then to also foster public and private partnerships between government and private organizations alike to share information, like if there's a major cyber attack, to share the information immediately to alert people on what to do and see if there are things that can be done to reduce the probability of risks in the future. So also more commitment is needed in providing the right infrastructure, whether financially or even providing the right set of people who are skilled. This does not mean just technical people, that is tech related people. It can be people like lawmakers, legal practitioners, and even system auditors that know about what's going on behind. And there's also a need to have a continuous training of experts in the field to encourage the citizens, not just people who end up to become cyber experts, but citizens to gain more awareness of what it means, that their cyber protection is equally as important as what they do physically. If you have to protect yourself physically, look at who is on the road, how you dress, what you put in your pockets. If you can be conscious of that, then you should also be conscious of what you do in the digital space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kaka, for your very insightful presentation. Every time I listen to you talk, I become very much aware of the fact that whilst technology has got lots of benefits, it also puts us at a lot of risk and makes us much more vulnerable in many areas of our lives. I'm now going to open up the floor for discussion. Are there any questions from the floor? Yes, Prof.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cook, that was a very interesting presentation, and there are just the most important aspects mentioned as far as the contemporary situation and further developments are concerned. Within the last developments, I have a question concerning the necessity of just setting up the infrastructure for Brics cyber development. As far as I understand, there is no any roster at the moment of the technical background and devices and programs that certainly should be compatible, otherwise it would not work. And the most important is, and probably my question, what do you think about the necessity of having a universal platform for cyber activity and security? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So for a universal platform, currently it's not realistic because number one, every country has confidential information that they will not share. They can actually share a database where cyber security findings are, let's say, most wanted cyber criminals, latest cyber attacks. That is possible, but not everything. For example, we have countries like Russia and China who that both do state-sponsored hacking as a form of defense, and they will not reveal everything that they do technically or even in the legal direction with everyone, because just like your military stands in there, they're not going to tell you every weapon that they have in their space. So there is a level of adoption whereby people will, countries will share a degree to which they want to share. You can't force that. Then each country has to look at the feasibility of that solution. So if you share an information that, oh, this happened and it affected our infrastructure this way, you have to understand that different countries, even within the BRICS nations, have different levels of digital or digitalization when it comes to their society. So what affects one country the most may not affect another. And that also has to be put in place. Then you look at the infrastructural investments that has to be established first to actually implement certain solutions. So not all solutions can be used by each of the countries, but there is a level of adoption that can work in terms of being realistic or about what each country has in place and how much they can invest towards meeting at the midpoint. I hope this answers your question.
Okay, can I specify? Yes. There are several areas of mutual interest, yeah, such as trade, finance, some economic aspects, and blockchain activity. Probably it is reasonable, well, just to set up the areas of an interest of the countries and go along this kind of unification and make them all the universal platform within that spheres of interest, because there is some specificity for each country and some interests that should be protected by all means. But at the same time, there are common interests in some aspects. What do you think about it?
Okay, so from what you've discussed, if they have common interest in things like blockchain and the likes, there is a possibility whereby each country has to, or the richer countries have to invest in it because it is going to be beneficial to all of them. Then there is a level of investment that has to be put in there, which will give each country some kind of leverage to enjoy the benefits at that central point. So it's more of an agreement of initial investments, and over a long period of time, other countries, when they grow economically too, can also expand on the initial investment that has been put in place to enjoy this infrastructures.
Thank you very much. It works with the Eurasian countries. So there is a kind of platform.
Thank you very much. I'll give Dr. Mudalemwa an opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Officer, for the wonderful presentation. I have a couple of questions, and from your presentation, statistics show that Russia and China are leading in cyber security attacks. And so my question is, why are Russia and China leading in the cyber security threats and attacks? And from who? Because I think it's important to know who is attacking you so that you can better maybe protect yourself. And then the second question is, are we all cyber insecure due to lack of knowledge and information? And how can you help the man in the street who is most probably going to be very vulnerable to cyber attacks? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. So for the first question, majority of the tension when it comes to cyber warfare is usually between Russia, Ukraine, Russia, US. China has a similar pattern when it comes to America, because the US also does not spare when it comes to spare the other country when it comes to such things, because there has been in an indicator of where they have a national team that attacked the Iranian missile program just to ensure that it doesn't go through. And they stood by this attack. So we need to accept the fact that not every war is going to be fought physically. So if you have political rivals, they are going to use what they have. And if they have power in the cybersecurity space, they are going to use it, which makes them a main target for those types of countries. And the level of digitalization that both countries also have also influences this. So that's I don't know if this answers the first question. Then for the second question, countries that have been successful in implementing good cybersecurity policies and reduced the risk factors have widely publicized the need for cybersecurity. They ensure that each citizen is aware of the implications of what goes wrong. And you can easily be tracked, you're monitored, they do system auditing, they do awareness from all levels, so you can't claim ignorance about it. And they ensure that it's taught like every other skill that everyone needs to know about. Even if you are not the most literate person, you will understand the need for security and possibly the implications of what your actions might mean if you do the wrong thing. So countries like the UK, let's say, take for example, London has high surveillance level. If you carry out something that is illegal through the cyberspace, they are not even going to run after you. They have your data in a centralized space, and you'll be sanctioned accordingly. So there is a need to spread that information. It's not just in the organizations where they tell you, oh, when you get to your company, this is a POPI Act, and you only take it seriously within that space. You need to take it seriously inside the organization and also on the streets. And I also believe, apart from literacy, compliance is a major issue. People are selectively compliant. So sometimes they comply when they tell them to do something. Let's say you go to the Home Affairs to get something done, they comply. But when they get into their personal lives, they go to the very websites that they shouldn't go to. They share their information with people that they shouldn't share it with. But all they think about when it comes to cybersecurity is my banking app okay? So it's beyond securing your banking app. It's the little things that you do. It's the person that you share your information with who shouldn't have knowledge of personal information. So these are parts of the things that needs to be put in place. Awareness alongside intentional compliance are important.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Yeah, thanks a lot. You make me worry a little bit now more. I think most of us use on one of our favorite web browsers the function to sync your information with your various devices or computers, including your passwords for most of your sites that you regularly use. So first question is, how secure is that? Well, we most of us now have the dual identification, or what you call it, login. Once you use your password, there is another thing that comes on your phone that confirms that this is actually you, which give me a little bit of I don't get the word now. It makes me feel a little bit better, but I'm sure that will not be long, good for so much longer. What is your position on these two aspects?
Thanks for the questions. Number one, always, if you can help it, do not automatically store your passwords in your browser, because if you have a ransomware attack and the attacker takes over your computer, they can get access to it. Although if you save it on Google Chrome, it will ask you for a PIN before it reveals the password. So sometimes you are advised to clear your cookies. Cookies are like identification trails of you from different websites. It can keep your email address, it can keep your IP address to locate you. So you can clear it from your browser, but store your password elsewhere, which has nothing to do with your computer. And I don't always advise synchronization of devices. If they get into one of the devices, they can get into all of the devices that are connected together, and they can log you out and ultimately take over the systems. So it's not advisable. If you do it with a wristwatch and a computer, maybe you use it for jogging or walking, then it's not non-consequential. But synchronizing even devices that are home or that are used for other important things, I don't advise that. Then for the second question, double authentication is good because the main thing when it comes to authentication is identification, that is, who are you? So it checks against the database if you're who you say you are, then based on that, it gives authorizations. So some organizations still check against the authorization if you have the right type of authorization to view what they're checking. So sometimes you still log in and they will tell you to input maybe a one-time password after you've done the first two authentication. But there are other ways of authenticating who you are. Some people do, some organizations do iris scan, facial recognition scan, thumbprints, or even devices whereby it happens. Some even do scans for the way you walk. So there are some advanced methodologies, but they are also dangerous. So imagine if you have a cut on your thumb and you have to put your thumbprint and it's not exactly the way it should be. So sometimes we try not to use the most advanced method of security. But the main aim is if you have double authentication and someone else is not holding onto your phone, let's say you misplace your phone, then you should quickly block the line and report it missing so that someone else isn't getting the alerts for your second authentication. You can change the phone number that links to that account so that you can get the authentication somewhere. And not all organizations have the capacity to do the facial recognition scan or the body recognition or even the voice recognition as a form of second authentication. So most organizations try to keep it simple with simple text or even email or calls to give you the code. So that's the way I see it. For now, double authentication is still okay.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Can I maybe take one comment or question from the chat? Then I'll come back to you, Prof. Gopal. Josia, do you want to make your input? Josia?
Yes,
Thank
yes, yeah. I was trying to say this was a very informative presentation, and as these areas are still developing, and it was very useful to listen and lots to learn. My question was majority section of the population is out of the cyberspace, especially women, how important it is to bridge the gap to ensure it's safe as today's world is run by cyber, digital on behalf of majority, especially as majority is cut off in Brics countries. Is that an issue that majority is left out?
Please, can you rephrase the question?
Should I repeat the question? Okay.
Yes, please.
I said vast majority section of the population is out of the cyberspace, especially women. How important it is to bridge the gap to ensure it's safe as today's world is run by cyber, digital on behalf of majority. And especially these majority are also from the Brics countries. Is that an issue that majority is left out?
Thank you for the question. It is an issue because it is a major one, because when you look at countries like India and even South Africa and other nations within BRICS, you can't, we do not have equal level of education. And even within the educational space, not everyone is aware of what to do. It's not like you haven't heard of cybersecurity as an educated person, but sometimes you don't know the depth. Then you move to those who are not on the same plane of education. They are mostly after making ends meet by default. They don't think about it. They believe, I'm not really using anything digital. Why should I care? And this is why I said there is a need for widespread education on the need for cybersecurity, whether you are highly integrated into the digital space or you just have a bank account or a banking app, then you need to educate everyone beyond that sphere. Then you also look at the marginalization of women. Yes, you have more men in the cybersecurity space, and this is where some countries do invest in training people in this field at a lower cost or even at a free rate to ensure that they are absorbed into the government and or government parastatals to help with the national security. So this is important in terms of investing. That was why part of the recommendations included investing in human resources. So I hope this answers your question.
Thank you, Ms. Kaka. Prof. Gopa.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. So, Ms. Kaka, you're very informative, very insightful, and I think in some ways anxiety-provoking as well, given the fact that we're moving quickly into the digital space. So I have two quick questions for you. The first one is, this is my understanding, is that the more you attack, and I'm speaking about in the cyberspace, the more you attack, the more vulnerable you become. And I am contextualizing that within, for example, when we looked at your statistics, the bar graphs, and we noticed that Russia almost consistently appeared to be to have the highest security threats. So that's my first one. And I'm just assuming it's Russia or China, India, any of the BRICS countries. The second question is, and I'm referring to the global data breach statistics, and I don't know if that was a different graphic that you displayed, but I was wondering, what are some of the indicators that were used to collect that particular piece of data? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So for the first question, when it comes to cybersecurity, if you are practicing state-sponsored hacking or you have cybersecurity units, you automatically put a target on your back. And for big nations where you have information as assets, confidential information that can change the world, you would definitely consistently be a target to cyber attacks. So they can't avoid it because they are well-known nations. And you also look at the other question where you mentioned please can you repeat the other question?
So is it the one on the more you attack, the more vulnerable?
No, the second one.
The second one that relates to the graph where you looked at the global data breach statistics.
Okay, yes. So for that, I mentioned it that they look at the levels of successful data breaches, compliance to laws and regulations. They look at the effectiveness of existing law in terms of compliance, infrastructure, existing infrastructure. Is it enough? Then is the government doing enough to push forward in the agenda of punishing perpetrators? So those things are used to measure the strength of countries when it comes to cyber security. Those were the things that were used to measure their strength.
So to you, Chairperson, if I may, if you will indulge me, please. Is it possible for Ms. Kaka to bring up that particular slide to ask her someone?
Which one?
Is it okay? I'm sorry, you go ahead. Yeah, so I was wondering how is it that South Africa features so lowly on this?
Okay, so we have to consider the level of digitalization. As much as we have more people using the internet, more people using the smartphones, you have to look at the percentage of those who are adopting more usage of the digital space. So you have the younger generation. There is an actual report which wasn't included in here. You have the younger generation using more smartphones, having more digital presence. Now, countries like Russia, China have certain cities that are smart cities. They are highly digitalized. South Africa is nowhere close. Cape Town is the closest city to having a smart city, where you have high-level surveillance or high-level integration of digitalization. So it's not like those crimes are not occurring, but it's hard to capture if there is less connectivity between certain collection of data. So for example, in a country like Russia, your national ID number can be used to link you to a central database, which can link to your activities online, where you've been to online, that is your digital footprint, and any other thing that you do. We do not have a centralized database yet in South as of yet, because you have different parastatals with their own databases. You go to one parastatal, they tell you fill a new form. Although your ID number works to a great extent, but it's not unified under an ERP, that is Enterprise Resource Planning System, which are mega systems which are cost around $1 billion to integrate data from different parastatals and use information system interfaces to access the same information to catch perpetrators. So when you don't have your data in the same place, so it's hard to pinpoint these activities. There is, it's sad that I'm not using my computer. I would have shown you a live feed of how cyber attacks are currently going on, and you find out that it's not so much in South Africa, but you can't really capture it as much as you want. So technological adoption is also influential in not capturing this information. So it affects the rankings.
So to my last, hopefully my last follow-up question. So I realize that its effectiveness of cybersecurity policies, and South Africa is number 39. And if we look at the other rankings, we are really far behind.
Yes.
So that should make us worried rather than take comfort.
Yes. Yes, so that's why when the Brics nations came together and proposed a practical cooperation, it's something that will help each nation improve on their minimum standards for cyber security and look towards investing in there, because as the nation grows, it's going to be more targeted than even what it's experiencing right now. And technology is getting more sophisticated. We're having people do more remote jobs. So that means more integration into the technological space. So if they don't invest right now, it's going to cost the nation in the future. But the cooperation is going to help improve the minimum standards and also open the eyes of the government about what to do and how to leverage the technology they have and take it to the next level.
Thank you. Yes, wait.
So, Prof was asking about, the breach statistics, and I actually want to raise a point. I'm doing my master's with Prof and I'm studying ransomware. So there's some problems with breach statistics. One of the problems is that when you look at breach statistics, it could be 2 million breaches for X country and 100 breaches for Y country. Just because it's lower doesn't mean that the severity of the breach is greater because this number is greater. So what do I mean by that? Firstly, we've seen breaches that have happened overseas due to ransomware where they hit children's hospitals. Children couldn't get the medication and treatment that they needed. The other issue with breach notifications due to ransomware is underreporting, because companies don't want to say we were hit by a breach. Sometimes they pay the ransom and they're not going to report it. So again, we have to think about sometimes the relevance of breach statistics. One thing that happened in South Africa was a breach that hit, I think it was TransUnion or the Justice Department, where the president's personal data was leaked, and as well a leader of an opposition party. That shouldn't happen. It should not, under any circumstance, should not happen. And I actually just want to add one more point, which is it's wonderful for us to talk about data privacy. I believe it's something we need, but I'm also of the opinion that data privacy is a complete myth.
Yes, that's true.
Because what's the point of pushing compliance between public and private when all of us sitting in this room, we could find our data on the dark web 3 ways from Sunday? And that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your point. It's true that organizations are not transparent about incidents that happen within their space, not to lose their reputation. And so also for data breaches, I said it earlier, it's subjective to the time of the research, and each research organization gets their data in different ways. So it's just an indicator of what's going on. And so also any organization or parastatal can be hacked. Even the American Trade Center was hacked at some point with all their security. So it's all about backing up your data, having cybersecurity insurance, and also sometimes organizations have sub-networks where no one can enter. They call them militarized zones. For example, Google provides you with Gmail accounts, and your Gmail resource is put in a middle network where end users can enter. But once you go beyond that network and want to enter into their inner network, then they block you with their firewalls. So some organizations have intrusion detection systems that are backed by AI. So those things need to be put in place, and lots of investments go into these things. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kazari.
Thank you very much, Ms. Taka. I just have one comment, and maybe that might be a closing comment or a question actually. When we were engaging in a discussion around this topic, I get a sense that it has the potential to induce fear amongst us. And I just wanted to check if you've got any closing comments to maybe share with us to alleviate our levels of anxiety and fear around the sense of vulnerability and lack of security in this cyberspace.
Okay, so my closing comments would be, don't be afraid, because even in the physical space, there are always presence of threats around. It's what you do that matters. And you can't put all your eggs in one basket and say the organization, my information is protecting me. You also have to do your part. And if you ever experience even a ransomware attack, do not panic, do not yield to any any blackmail, report the situation and let it be handled, because sometimes they'll tell you we've encrypted your data and you pay the amount and they don't decrypt it and keep blackmailing you on the same information. So don't panic whenever you experience these things, and think about it as you think about physical security. Understand the measures that you need. If you are not sure, speak to someone who understands how to protect, how the protection works in that space, to probably give you a hint or help you navigate the space. So you need to be positive about it. Don't think too much about it. Put your mechanisms in place, maybe your antiviruses, try to follow through on compliance, although it's not easy, and report if you see any unusual activities, maybe on your accounts or even your platform or email account or address. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very practical and good suggestions that you've given to us. And thank you so much for your interesting presentation. Indeed, it generated a lot of discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to the team, we will be taking a 30-minute tea break. So can we come back at 11 o'clock? Online audience, we will be back at 11 o'clock. Thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope we are now back at our seats. We are ready for the next round of presentations. The first one is by Professor Gopal and Dr. Nyati. Over to you, colleagues. Dr. Nyati. Are you coming okay with your slide presentation there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to thank you all for being here and for the opportunity that we've been given to present a paper focusing on social dialogue as a vehicle to address peace and security, an analysis of the Brics formal declarations. So the paper is done by Prof. Gopal and Dr. Crescencia Nyati. So briefly, when we are looking at the peace and security issues, when we look at the current state of peace and security globally, we find that the issue is very complex and it varies from region to region, with different regions and countries experiencing different levels of conflict and stability. So with that, taking into consideration the variety or the complexity of peace and security, we realize that there are several ongoing conflicts around the globe. And also we have noted some of the threats, some of the global threats, which include terrorism and some that include tensions between major powers. We have seen that there are ongoing tensions between the US, China, and Russia. And also we note also the regional tensions that are taking place in several regions like the Israel and Palestine. And also we note, like the previous speaker was talking on issues of cybersecurity threats, we also note that cybersecurity threats have emerged as one of the major security challenges that is facing our global community. And this particular current state of peace and security, it highlights the need for continued and cooperation and coordination to address these particular challenges. So we note that when we look at global security on its own, it seeks to address the diverse and complex threats to international community. So I'm going to move on the objectives of our paper.
Dr. Nyati, maybe before you move on, can I just ask you to just scroll down to the toolbar at the bottom. There is, right at the bottom, there is a slide presentation mode. If you can just change this into a presentation mode. Yes, right at the bottom. There is an icon for slide mode. I think it will give us a better view of your presentation.
There's another option at the top.
Yeah.
If you look at.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. You can proceed.
Okay, when looking at the objectives of our paper is more concerned on investigating how the Brics countries, through their formal declarations, attempt to address peace and security. through the lens of the social dialogue approach. And also, we seek to identify these global security challenges and threats, and also to determine how the BRICS countries are using social dialogue to combat the global issues affecting peace and security. So we begin by tracing the formation of the BRICS and also reviewing, noting some of the global threats, and also we move on to look at how the BRICS countries, through these formal declarations, are attempting to address peace and security through the lens of social dialogue approach. And with this paper, we seek to contribute to the BRICS role in peace and security by proposing that global security threats can be addressed through multilateral social dialogue. So we all know that the origins of BRICS, they were provoked by the global financial crisis that took place in 2008. We note that these particular countries, they realized, in realizing this crisis, they said, we cannot sit back and be bystanders, but they came together and say, let's begin to map ways on how best we can address the crisis of globalization and also the issues of governance and of liberal world order. So that's how we see the formation of the BRICS from that. So basically for our paper, we are focusing on the BRICS declarations from 2013 to 2022. So we began why particular these particular years, because we have realized that when it comes to the focus before was more on the economic aspect, but from 2013 going forward, we see that these the groups have broadened their focus, looking at political and social economic issues that are affecting global peace and security. In our methodology, we adopted a qualitative research process where we identified, where we used thematic analysis to identify some of the themes that came out from these declarations from 2013 up to 2022. And looking at the overview of the BRICS on issues of peace and security, we realize that their commitment is more on ensuring that the global community or themselves, they are committed in ensuring that issues of peace and security are dealt with, and also any global challenge or threats is also identified and addressed, and also putting into focus that they prioritize United Nations as playing a central role in also addressing some of these global challenges. So we identified from the declarations, we identified the issues, some of the security threats, which include terrorism, cyber threats, human rights violations, global conflict, military interventions, unilateral sanctions, and also the reformation of the United Nations Security Council, of which these particular issues. I'll discuss them briefly on the upcoming slides. But before I begin to explain further on these particular threats, I want to take you to the to social dialogues, because our main focus is to see how the BRICS are also utilizing social dialogue as one of the ways of addressing peace and security threats. So in defining social dialogue, we noted that the International Labour Organization defines social dialogue as a participatory development approach that includes all types of negotiation, consultation, or simply an exchange of information between or among representatives of government, employers, and workers on issues of common interest relating to economic and social policies. We also noted one of the scholars, Kambule, he explains that social dialogue is a mechanism of participatory partnerships joint problem solving and decision making. And when we are looking particularly at social dialogue, we note that there are different techniques that are used when it comes to social dialogues. And these techniques, they include negotiation, information exchange, consultation, collaborative decision-making, and joint problem solving. And we will note at a later stage that this particular approach has been adopted by the Brics as one of the ways on finding a common ground, and also on mapping ways on how security threats can be addressed. So going back to some of the threats, global threats that are affecting our international community, we noted that the Brics, realizing the cyber security issue, they signed in 2017, they signed a Brics joint declaration on cyber security cooperation to address the emerging threats. And also the good part that we are noting about the Brics is that whenever they meet in these particular summits, and also when they sit together in different platforms, they do not only suggest or bring forth that we need to address only and leave the issue. We have seen them also domesticating and formulating legislations around these particular issues. For example, in South Africa, we have seen the Cyber Crimes Act being signed, and also the PI that's been signed as a way of saying, yes, we acknowledge that there are cybersecurity issues. Hence, there is need for us to continue to try or to map ways on how best we can address them. And also we realize that terrorism is one of the major security issues that are affecting peace internationally. So what the BRICS security countries have done is that through their declarations, we see in the UFA declaration, and also the one in China, in Xiamen, the 2017 one, it condemned all forms of terrorism, and it also stressed the need for cooperation amongst the BRICS in countering terrorism. This is important because when it comes to issues of terrorism, they have a spillover effect. Hence, we see the BRICS mapping ways or coming together, forming like the BRICS anti-terrorism working group, so that it continues to meet regularly and see and map ways on how best they can address the threats of terrorism, and also to exchange information at the same time and the best practices in countering terrorism. We also note that the BRICS countries have realized that unilateral sanctions whereby one country decides to impose sanctions on another country without the approval of the United Nations, we see them going against that particular approach and condemning unilateral sanctions, and in most of their declaration. Why they are doing so? Because they believe that sometimes some of these sanctions are just imposed without a proper consideration of the potential consequences. And at the same time, they look at the impact that they have on the economies and also on the lives of people when such interventions are being taken. And also we realize in their declarations that the BRICS are against the military interventions, as most, when looking at from 2013 to 2022, they've expressed opposition of any military interventions, and they've continued to call for peaceful or constructive ways of resolving conflicts through dialogue. And why they are calling for the use of dialogues, it's because they've realized that whenever military interventions when military begin to intervene in conflict, they have a tendency of exacerbating the conflict. And also at the same time, we see the loss of lives. And also they note that it also undermines the principles of international law. and hence the call constantly of adopting a dialogue or finding other constructive ways or non-violent ways of resolving conflicts. And also we see that the BRICS, from their declarations, they've constantly maintained the stance of saying we need a reformation of the United Nations Security Council. Why the reformation? It goes back to the fact that the United Nations Security Council is outdated because it's still crafted in the post World War era. The way it's crafted, it only has a composition of just 5 permanent members, which are the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Russia, and China. And when you look at these 5 permanent members, you'll find that other regions, they don't even have representatives within this Security Council, which the BRICS feel that there is a need so that other countries like developing countries, especially Africa and Latin America, can be included, because without their inclusion, the issue of addressing peace and security or stabilization of the regions, it cannot be obtained. Hence the need of the reformation of the United Nations Security Council. And then they also, the BRICS, they also speaks of, they also highlight the issue of human rights violations that are happening across the globe. And what's important is that when in 2013, we noted that the BRICS welcomed the World Conference on Human Rights, and also they indicated their commitment of exploring cooperation on how best they can also play part in also addressing human rights violations. And also we note that they always encourage a human rights-based approach when it comes to issues of human rights, especially when it comes to issues of promoting social dialogues, and also as one of the ways of resolving conflict. As they emphasize that they will make every effort to always ensure that there is a non-politicized human rights dialogue at all relevant international fora, including the United Nations. So human rights are one of the core issues that the BRICS are concerned with. And because they realize with the human rights violation, it is impossible to have peace. It is impossible to obtain peace within our societies. And then we also realize when it comes to their declarations that they speak of the resolution of global conflicts. Why specifically the global conflicts? Because remember, when we are talking of the BRICS, they initially started as these are economic giants from their respective regions. And whenever there are conflicts or ongoing conflicts in different regions where they trade with, there is a problem when it comes to issues of trade, and also issues to do with any economic exchanges, because conflict have a tendency of blocking those particular exchanges that they want to engage in. So they have continued to denounce all these conflicts that are ongoing, especially in regions like North Africa, Middle East, and West Africa, because they realize that these conflicts, they have got a negative repercussions whenever they continue, or whenever they continue without being addressed. What we also observed that despite the BRICS coming together, it's not like everything is perfect when it comes to this particular group. We realize that there are also internal conflicts within the BRICS on their own. These conflicts, one of the issues that we identified, especially one of the strategies that we identified on how do they handle these particular conflicts, we realized when it comes to these annual summits that they usually have, they assume a business as usual. That's the approach that they take, because they've realized that as much as China and India can have a conflict, that particular conflict conflict on its own, it shouldn't be brought into the bigger group or into the bigger summit, because they have the ability to resolve their own conflicts without spilling them over into the entire group. And we noted that one of the strategies that they have used is compartmentalization, where different areas of corporations are kept separately and the conflict in one area, and so that that particular conflict doesn't affect their cooperation in other areas. So we see them constantly adopting that. And also, we see them also not having a proper way of resolving conflict. Hence, in 2019, we see that there is the Brics Legal Forum that was formulated that realized the urgent need for the Brics to have a dispute resolution center within the member states. And also, we observed that the Brics usually take a low profile when it comes to security issues, in the sense that instead of denouncing some of their member states, we find them refraining from doing that, or even not taking collective voice or issuing statement against one particular member. For instance, we note that in 2014, where the Brics nations, they largely refrained from denouncing Russia in 2014 when it annexed Crimea. So it's one of the issues that we identified, or when it comes to some of the issues on how the Brics are handling the internal conflict. And also, even when it comes to their voting system, we realize that they only vote together when there are issues of concern that involve them. When there is no common ground, or when they have no interest in that particular issue, they don't usually vote together. So it's something that some of the scholars, they've recognized as one of the loops, or whether it in future it might threaten the existence of the Brics. So it's something that is worth to always explore and see whether it has got a potential in threatening their existence. So briefly, in highlighting all these issues that Brics are trying to resolve, and also in highlighting some of the internal conflicts that they are having, we note that the declarations, it's mainly a call that they have made to the international community that let's work together and build relations, either at community level or at regional or at global, at an international level, so that we try and find ways on how to address issues that are threatening peace and security. And we also note that the member states, they continually hold meetings, and also they've asked, they continue to hold these particular meetings so as to continue to map ways on how or map resolutions on how to address the global threats. And also we note that the Brics are not calling for quick solutions to immediate problems, but rather they are trying to call, or they are trying to generate or open platforms where different groups of the society or different groups within their respective countries may come together and map ways on how do we address, or how do we build relations that will ensure sustainable peace. And at the same time, we note that when using the social dialogue approach, we note that it has got a potential to improve interregional interactions, as peace is centered and rooted in the quality of relations. And so the Brics are continually engaging in social dialogues as a way of finding addressing conflicts and differences, and also as a way of finding a common ground on issues of mutual conflict. So one of the some of the recommendations that we came with is that it is high time that the international community plans a long-term and deep, systematic and structural peace-building reforms to eliminate the conditions that create and reproduce violent relations at international interaction. So we noted that for us to reach at that point, it needs, when exploring even the declarations of the that are made by the Brics, is that they have a realization that we can only address these particular challenges when we deal with the root causes and not only the symptoms, but it is important to start revisiting and reflecting on what are the really challenges, or what are the issues that are driving these security threats, or issues that are driving conflicts in various communities. And also, there is a need to shift the way the international community understands interregional interactions, because without that particular understanding, we'll have a situation where we'll continue to have these ongoing conflicts. And also, there is a need to take into consideration that for social dialogue to take place, there has to be a willingness from both parties, those in conflict, and also the willingness for the countries to cooperate, because social dialogue can only be successful when there is cooperation, and also when there is a political will. And also, we realize that military interventions will not fully resolve the global challenges. Hence, there is a need to have the capacity to understand and sustain social dialogue as a fundamental means of constructive change, because we know that conflicts are inevitable. When two people or two groups meet, there is possibility of conflict. So we cannot do away with conflict. It is important that we begin to realize that even the military interventions, they are not sustainable. Hence the need to constantly tap into social dialogues where we meet and realize and start to map ways on how best can we resolve some of these challenges. And then we also looked at what future research can be undertaken, looking at the declarations that the Brics have made, especially in attempting to address issues of peace and security. We noted that while the Brics have made significant contributions to global peace and security through their joint initiative, there is also a need for a comprehensive assessment of their effectiveness in addressing the complex challenges facing the international community. And also there is a need to understand the nature of the Brics' role in regional security arrangement and how they can best contribute to regional peace and stability. We have seen Brics playing a critical role in peace building initiative and also in peacekeeping initiative. It is important that we go and revisit that and see how are they contributing, and also the effectiveness of these contributions. And also there is a need to better understand how international dynamics amongst the Brics countries shape the collective approach to peace and security. And also there is need to understand that the interactions and relations between the Brics and other actors, especially when looking at the United Nations, much research is needed in that particular area, so that we understand how they work with each other. And also there is also the need to assess the effectiveness of the Brics contributions to, like I've highlighted, to peacekeeping and peace building in efforts, and identify areas of improvement. With that, I want to highlight that from this particular study, we noted that there are different forums that the Brics have formed, especially like this one, where we have the South Africa Think think tank where it brings different groups of the society, the academics, the policymakers in trying to share information on some of the strategies that can be used to address issues of peace and security. So these are some of the platforms, and also we have seen there is the youth and also the women platforms that have been created by the Brics, because there is the realizations that that women also need we need to consider gender lanes whenever we are addressing issues of peace and security, and also we need to involve young people in addressing these particular challenges, because without them, then we are leaving a section that is critical to the resolution of some of these challenges. So briefly, the study revealed that the summit from 2013 to 2022, they relied more on social dialogues to address issues of peace and security. And also the approach can also be used at other levels, not only at international levels, but also we can use it at a regional and also at national level and community level, as we have seen. Even the civil society organizations, they've also tapped into social dialogue, and also the different governments, they've also tapped into social dialogue, because it is one of the ways of resolving conflicts non-violently. And also we noted that unlike the use of force or violent tactics such as war, which is a devastating impact, we have realized that social dialogue can lessen the loss of life, and it can also accelerate integration, peace, and international unity amongst the international community. So briefly, we noted that the Brics have harnessed social conversations to promote peace and security within the international community, despite the global challenges and internal conflicts within the group. We have seen that even the internal conflicts, they have not hindered them to work together in trying to address the global threats. With that, thank you.
Extensive analysis of the Brics formal declarations for the selected period. And thank you too for showing us the importance of social dialogue in peace and security. I am now going to open the floor for discussions and questions that colleagues may have. Yes, Prof.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, I would like to thank Crescentia for her assessment of the situation, and her approach is just vividly said is objective. And I would also like to thank the Professor Gafal for the contribution that has been made to Brics countries as far as the research is concerned. I share your approach concerning different aspects, but I would like to stress attention to the following. Sanctions is just a mean of economic and political concurrency. The concurrency between developing countries who are producers and developed countries who are consumers. They have been consumers, and most of the countries have gained in wars. It started just within the experience of a Roman Empire, when the empire has gained in wars as far as the economy, finance, monetary system, let's put it like that, and so on and so forth. US is the country just that gained from wars. For example, if we remember the Second World War, before it completed such kind of an operation, let's put it like that. In 1944, the International Monetary Fund was funded, and dollar has become the global currency. To a certain extent, it helped to, well, just contribute to the revival of economy of different countries. But since then, it is one of the global currency that is freely used and gives you as the power just to dictate to the countries what to do, because most of them do not have the right of independence, do not have the right of thinking about the security of their countries, and they even neglect their economic interests and go just along the road of the community that probably will bring them to ruin. As an example, we see a situation that is going on in European countries. It's quite clear that they neglect their economic interests for sure. The world is changing, and the world is bringing up on table new possibilities and new power for developing countries. As I have already mentioned, the voices of our countries should be heard in all international institutions that you have mentioned. And the dialogue is really very important, because countries can find their mutual interest that they should keep to while having discussions on the global area. That is really a power. And if keep on together, it will give certain results. Sanctions is also the possibility for us to see which country has the right of independence and which not. As far as Crimea is concerned and other territories of Ukraine, historically, if we study different historic just approaches to the problem, historically it was the territory of the Soviet Union, of the Russian Federation, that was given as a gift without any juridical procedure to one of the republic of the Soviet Union, that was Ukraine. And the country, there are a lot of Russians, and it's an awful situation that from both sides, people are being killed at the moment. Solving the problem from one side, from the Russian Federation, of the independence of Russians who are living in the territory of Ukraine, and the necessity of having the respect that is the essential point to Russian community. And it's from one side. And from the other, it's just the intention to solve the problem of global concurrency by hands of other people with the supply of weapons of different kinds of, and with without any contribution to economic development of the country. But as a result, the victims, that is the payment for the participation of some of the countries who are within this alliance, that is just trying to solve just some problems within the citizens of Ukraine. So we consider, we're looking forward that this conflict will just soon be completed, because nobody wants people to be killed and to have victims from both sides. But at the same time, it will be stopped when there will not be a supply of armament to Ukraine, and that will be not bombarding the cities and just the citizens, civil citizens, not soldiers. When they are not killed, then the war will be stopped. Because every day we have the information, it's just objective information that there is the bombardment of the territory where the Russian community is living. It's awful. Somebody should protect them. Yeah? And this time it is just the Russian Federation, and not only. We have a lot of people who come from all over the world, from different countries, from Africa also, and they take their part in such kind of struggle, and they also pay by their lives for the war that is initiated by the United States of America. It goes without saying. They know it perfectly, and the whole world knows it also. So the sanctions for us, it's understandable, but it's not crucial. Because as I have mentioned at the very beginning, we are producers and we have a lot of different resources to overcome different sanctions, and there are different mechanisms that give such kind of possibility, and there are historic experience that helps us to overcome sanctions. My question is, at the beginning, you have mentioned the cybersecurity. And the cyber operations have just introduced to practice, have been introduced to practice when computers were invented. And just they were used really in economic sector, financial sector, in other sectors, and there was within the cyber space. Yeah? And actually it's put on the table. Why it is so? What do you think about? Thank you.
May you kindly rephrase your question again?
My question is, the cyber activity has been developed for many years since computers were invented and practically used in different spheres of economy. Yeah? Many years have passed, and only now just the cybersecurity is put on a table as a burning problem. What do you think? Why is it so? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your comments, and also for the extensive contribution that you have also made on issues of sanctions. When it comes to your question, we realize that basically cyberspace is an essential component of modern society, looking at how technology and information has grown. And now we see more interest on issues of cyber, despite having technology, but we have seen the growth of the fourth industrial revolution, when much of the things are moving digitally. And hence, with that movement or without shift, we have seen the growth of digital organized crime. So hence, that particular growth of digitalized organized crime, it also calls for attention that we need to start looking at issues of cybersecurity, or issues that are driving digital organized crime, because without addressing that, we run a risk of having so many information or privacy of or private information being distributed publicly. So hence the Brics at this particular time, they've shifted their focus to say, okay, with these threats, it is important not to leave them not addressed, but let's begin to start addressing them, because they also a threat to peace, and also they are a threat to the fact that people need access to information, but the correct information. Hence, I see a shift in that. I'm not sure whether I've answered you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that discussion. Any other inputs, comments, questions? Okay, doesn't look like we have additional questions. Dr. Mteliana?
Well, I'm just, well, thank you very much, first of all, for this excellent presentation. I'm just wondering about the role of academics of science and scientists and intellectuals as far as this approach to peace building and security, the approach that you mentioned, social dialogue, because it seems now, particularly when you look at what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, this conflict, you wonder whether social dialogue is the approach, is the feasible and viable approach to solving the conflict. Because what we see now is military intervention, really. Is that social dialogue have a chance really?
Okay, thank you so much for that particular question. What I can say, looking at the issues of Russia and Ukraine, remember from the presentation, I indicated that there are internal conflicts that are taking place amongst the Brics nations, of which there are some where they call each other and not even address them when it comes to these summits. Hence, we see there are some conflicts that are ongoing that the Brics countries are not coming together to try and resolve them. They leave each country to deal with its particular problems or issues. But at the same time, I want to highlight that when it comes to the effectiveness of social dialogues in addressing such particular instances, remember, social dialogue, it only depends on several factors. And these include the willingness of all the participants to engage in constructive dialogue, and also the ability of the parties to find common ground, and also the existence of political will to take action based on the outcomes of the dialogue. And then we see in this particular instance, there is a lack of political will between the parties. Hence, we are seeing we are asking each other whether the social dialogues, are they a good approach to take in this particular instance? But at the same time, I also want to highlight that social dialogues are only one component of a comprehensive approach to addressing peace and security challenges. For it to actually work, social dialogue, there is a need for it needs to be complemented by other measures such as diplomatic efforts, regional and international cooperation, and concrete actions to address the root causes of conflict and instability. So we cannot, in some instances, we can adopt social dialogue, but there are some instances where we find the parties not willing to come to a table, then it becomes a problem. Then we have to start finding other ways on how best can we actually resolve this particular challenge or conflict. I'm not sure whether I'm answering.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I quite agree that there is a necessity of social dialogues, of different agreements, of just even within the situation, just such called war with Ukraine. There was a long-term dialogue with participation of Germany and France, and there was really an agreement with Ukraine about well, just several possibilities of finalizing the conflict. And the parties were nearly to sign it. And just only in one day, after consultations of Ukraine with US, everything was ruined. Then there was a declaration of Merkel, and then the declaration of Hollande, that the process of reaching the agreement, yes, it was rather long, but it was intended to prolong the period of preparation of Ukraine to the war. That is the official declaration of Merkel and Hollande. And just imagine in which situation our president in the Russian Federation has found himself. That was a fraud. That was a fraud and neglection of these international agreements that were based on just a definite dialogue and consent of France and Germany to the points that were introduced to the agreement. It means that at the moment, it's a great problem for everybody, for the world community, to keep to the agreements that are achieved. Otherwise, it will be mess in the global economy. And politicians should take into consideration that we need to observe the United Nations regulation, not neglect them. We need to observe the WTO documents, regulations, and not to interpret them and just stick to them. At the moment, taking into consideration that kind of declarations of the European leaders, they were leaders at times. Our government does not believe to implement, but does not exclude the possibility of the agreement. But with whom? With Ukraine or US? Because Ukraine is nothing without US. But US is interested in this war, not only from the position of concurrency, but there is the possibility for the companies that produce metal and weapons to gain profit. They gain profit. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the contribution. Dr. Nyati, I just have one question. In relation to the internal politics and dynamics that you have highlighted regarding the Brics countries and their stance in terms of how they respond when one of the countries has got issues, either engaging or not engaging. Do you, in your analysis, were you able to pick up some of the reasons why that is the case, and what would be your suggestion? I'm being kicked out. I keep being kicked out and
Maybe it's your network.
Apologies, I keep being kicked out and in of this session. My question was, have you in your analysis got a sense of the reasons for this? And secondly, what would you suggest would be a way of resolving this, if at all possible? I hope you have my questions. Do you want me to repeat?
No, I heard your question. Thank you so much for the question. From the analysis, we realized that the BRICS states, for example, when it came to issue, for example, the confrontations that happened between India and China, we realized that the other member states, they felt that India and China can actually resolve their conflicts without bringing them into the bigger group. So they had to compartmentalize that because they felt that there are some issues that don't actually involve all of them. These are their internal conflicts that they need to resolve on their own without bringing into the bigger group, because they realized that when the formation of the BRICS happened, their priority is to focus on cooperation between these parties. So they wouldn't allow any smoke or other issues that are happening within their corners to interrupt that particular stance which they stand on as the 5 countries. So it's one of the issues that they have. And also, when they are not interested in a certain issue, some member states, they, for example, looking at how they've been voting, especially in the United Nations General Assembly, when they are not, for example, when it comes to issues of nuclear, South Africa is not even interested in issues. Yes, it has interest, but it doesn't have nuclear power to talk of, while other countries have bigger nuclear issues that they are dealing with. So when such issues are raised, some they just let others deal with their issues or focus on whatever they want. If it's not of interest to, for example, South Africa, it will just take a silent approach when it comes to that issue, of which it's something that I highlighted, that there is a need for the BRICS countries to start looking at how they resolve their conflicts, because at the same time, when it comes to issues of when we look at the issue of Ukraine and Russia, the BRICS, they speak of not intervening in other countries or the issue of sovereignty, but they are the same people who are going against that principle. So we see a double standard when it comes to some of their members, of which it's something that needs to be addressed, of which there seem to be no one talking about it between them when they meet in this particular summit, which is a problem, because it shows that their conflict resolution skill or strategies, they still need to be relooked at, because they might pose a threat into their existence. So it's something that we picked up from our analysis.
Hey, thank you very much for your responses. Any other questions, colleagues?
Just if possible, the necessity to develop your study with concrete proposals for mechanisms of developing our dialogue in different spheres, better understanding and for keeping together. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much for a very interesting and thought-provoking presentation, and for the wonderful discussions from the floor. Thank you so much, Dr. Nyati and Professor Gopal. So we will now move on to our last speaker of the day, who is Mr. Van Bemi. Over to you, sir. Are you there, Mr. Van Bemi? I saw you earlier on. I hope you are on.
I'm on. It's network. I'm on.
Okay, perfect. Our technical expert, okay, there he is. You can go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you can hear me very well.
We can, thank you. Now there's a problem.
Okay. My name is Adebimpe Fagbemi, doctoral candidate from University of KwaZulu-Natal, Criminology and Forensic Studies discipline. Then also, I'm a detective from Department of State Services in Nigeria, over 2 decades experience. Thank you. The topic here before me is from global to national views, examine intelligence gathering as an intelligence coping policy. First and foremost, I'm going to discuss about terrorism and insurgency. I want to clarify the difference between the two words, because most scholars, they set these two words, terrorism with insurgency. That's number one. Then secondly, I'm going to look at insurgency from global, regional, and national. From the global, I'm going to cite 3 countries as a case in point, which are United Kingdom,
Mr.
Sri Lanka.
My apologies for interrupting you, sir. My apologies.
For the region, I'll use Kenya as a case in point. Why national? I will domiciliate to my state's own country, which is Nigeria. The first slide.
Mr. Fagbemi.
Introduction.
Apologies, sir. Is it cut off? This network is very bad. Cannot reset it.
It's messy. As the network is improved, shouldn't we be rescheduled to a place where we can get better reception? It looks like he's at home, so if we go to his office, we can do it.
Let's see if he joins us. He comes back.
Hello.
Mr. Fagbemi, we noticed that
Yes.
your activity is not very good. Is there a position that you can try and adopt where there is better reception or not?
I think, I don't know. No? Well, let me change my position. I've changed my position. Let me change my position.
Also, if we can just have your slides projected onto the screen, please.
Okay.
Okay, Ade, it's Prof. Gopal. How are you?
I'm good, man.
Is it okay if we are having a challenge listening to you, hearing you because of your internet connectivity?
Okay.
Are you okay with one of us here presenting and doing your reading your presentation? You can
Why
stay
WhatsApp?
on. No, it's okay.
Let's try it now.
All right. Okay, you can try it now. Please go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. It's much better now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, as I said earlier, the next slide, please. Introduction. There is a misconception between terrorism. Thank you. There's a misconception between terrorism and insurgency. I want to clarify this misconception by most scholars. Terrorism can be defined as a special form of clandestine, undeclared, and unconventional warfare, waged without any humanitarian rules. While insurgency can be defined as a form of rebellion in which a dissident faction that has the support of a substantial part of the population instigates the commission of widespread act of civil disobedience, sabotage, terrorism, and wages guerrilla warfare in order to overthrow the legitimate government. Now, what I'm trying to pinpoint here is that the aim of terrorism is to create fear, panic, to coerce the citizen. While insurgents, their aim is to overthrow the legitimate government. Now, we are going to look at, in this top presentation, I'm going to critically look at insurgency from global, regional, and national perspective. From the global perspective, I cited 3 countries as a case in point, which are United Kingdom, Sri Lanka, and France. Then the regional, I cited Kenya, while the national, I domiciled to my own country, which is Nigeria. Now, insurgency from the global. Next slide. The British approach to the war against insurgency. The British government and its security forces, they encounter with insurgency. They are PIRA, Provisional Irish Republican Army. The Provisional Irish Republican Army then want to secede from United Kingdom, but the British government refused. This was what led to the insurgency. But the Royal Ulster's Constabulary failed to gather timely intelligence against this insurgent group. This was what gave birth to the British Army intelligence. This was what gave birth to MI5. Since the Royal Constabulary failed to do the needful, so the military intelligence have to intervene. So the MI5 and MI6, which is also known as Military Intelligence Section 5, they are saddled to gather domestic intelligence, while the MI6, Military Intelligence Section 6, are saddled to gather external intelligence outside the shores of United Kingdom. So, but with timely and accurate intelligence, the British government were able to curtail the menace of these insurgents. Next slide, please. Sri Lanka insurgency. The insurgency started in 1970 in Sri Lanka. Since Sri Lanka got independent in 1948 from the colonial master, that's the United Kingdom, they have been witnessing different phases of insurgencies. In fact, in Sri Lanka witnessed the deadliest insurgency ever. So you can recall, there are 2 major groups in Sri Lanka, which are Sinhalese and the Tamils. The Sinhalese are the majority, which comprises of 74% of the entire population, while the Tamils are 12% and other tribes are 40%. But before now, the Sri Lanka president have failed woefully to gather timely and accurate intelligence because they didn't use the real accurate intelligence. But during the tenure of the ex-Sri Lanka president, Mahinda Rajapaksa, that was between 2005 to 2015, he adopted grand strategy and intelligence gathering to curtail the menace of LTTE, which is also known as the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Elima. So the grand strategy he used includes peace salts, economy, military action, information operation, tactic, and so on and so forth. Now, the peace salts, he engaged insurgents in peace dialogue. He makes sure that the economy is good, is favorable to all and sundry. Then he used other approach too. So he combined all these strategies with timely and accurate intelligence to curtail the menace. Next slide. The French government and the security agencies also encounter insurgency cum terrorism. The French government adopted the current issues, it is called new counter-terrorism measures, such as surveillance, infiltration, establishment of cordons around key and vulnerable areas, patrolling within the flashpoints. With all these methods the French government used, the government was able to curtail the menace of the insurgents. Next slide. The Kenya government, now I'm going to the regional now. I'm looking at the insurgency on regional. The Kenya government and the security agencies encounter with the insurgency called terrorism. First and foremost, you have to note that the African countries, we are still far, far behind in terms of technology. The major reason for the persistence insurgency in Kenya is, number one, is the porous border. The country has a porous border and it shares borders with 5 countries, which are Tanzania, Uganda, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Somalia. The porous border gives room for Al-Shabaab terrorists from Somalia to invade and target Kenya without being apprehended by security forces. That's the first problem. Then the second problem is the local tension. Part of the Kenya, especially the northeast along the coast, are majorly they are domiciled by Muslims, which make up 10th of the Kenya's population. So based on this religious fanaticism, it gives room for insurgency to persist. Despite the intelligence agency in the state, the government and security agencies still failed to combat the menace of insurgency group because they lack procurement of timely and accurate domestic intelligence. Next slide. Now, insurgency from the view of national perspective. That's my country, Nigeria, the Nigerian state. The issue of terrorism and insurgency could be traced to religious intolerance and violence during this early era of Maitacini sect. Before the insurgents, this Boko Haram issue started in Nigeria. Nigeria have been battling with different insurgencies, which were traced to religious fanaticism. The Boko Haram group surfaced in year 2009 due to many factors, such as religious extremism, lack of political will, ideology orientation, perceived oppression. These are the factors that led to the surface of Boko Haram insurgency in the Nigerian state. The Boko Haram group was instigated by various factors. And again, they feel that they killed their leader, which was Muhammad Yusuf, was killed by the security agencies. So they felt bad that instead of this Nigerian government to take him to court and do the needful, he was summarily executed. So now they are fighting the reprisal attack. Then secondly, they feel that the government is not doing right thing. They've been neglected, especially the northern part of the country. So they are fighting for their cause. Then another thing, the government itself lacks political will to do the needful. Next slide. Thank you. How intelligence gathering can assist in curbing terrorism, insurgency, and other social vices. According to Adegoke, 2017, he opined that intelligence gathering is a procurement of information of value about the person of security threats, structures, activities of hostile intelligence service that can be processed through 3 closely items: collation, evaluation, interpretation to form intelligence. You all agree with me that when you gather information process to intelligence, you have to collate the information, you evaluate it, and interpret it to form intelligence. The aim of intelligence gathering is to curtail the menace of the insurgency or the enemies before perpetrating the evil acts. Then another issue is that the use of different intelligence gathering to combat the menace of the security agencies still lack the usage of the different intelligence forms. We have intelligence forms such as UMIT, which is also known as the meaning is human intelligence, SIGMIT, signal intelligence, OSIT, open source intelligence, GeoInt, geospatial intelligence, IMIT, imagery intelligence. What do you understand by human intelligence? This is the intelligence we gather from human beings, either from the prisoner of a war, from a travelers, through observation, from human being. That's human intelligence. And human intelligence is very reliable, but it needs to be reconfirmed. Signal intelligence. This can be gathered or can be obtained from a signal from different countries sending signal to each another. You can intercept it and gather intelligence from it. Open OSIT, open source intelligence. These are information that's already in the public domain, like internet, like magazine, textbooks. But from there, you can still gather the information and process it to gather intelligence. But all these, the security agencies lack the requisite knowledge to harmonize all this to gather a timely and accurate intelligence against the insurgents. Next slide. The aim of intelligence gathering is to curtail the menace of enemies of the state before perpetrating the acts. As an intelligence officer or intelligence community, we have to be proactive rather than reactive. But most of the intelligence in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, they are reactive. They are not proactive. In intelligence community, you have to gather the information that will be processed to intelligence about your enemies before perpetrating the act. They will be caught in the act, not after the damage has been done, which is known as damage control. No, you have to gather the information before they perpetrated before they perpetrating the evil act. Now, procurement of real intelligence, we have to gather the real intelligence about the sponsors, collaborators, the strengths and their weakness of our enemies. Then, and again, another problem is that intelligence sharing among security forces are not coordinated. Security forces are working in silos. They are working in silos. Then cooperation among the security agencies, there's no adequate cooperation. And most of the security agencies, they have what they call ego boosting. In Nigeria, for instance, we have over 14 security agencies. The military, there are 4. The intelligence, there are 5. The police, the correctional officer, the custom, the immigration, the economy. We have almost 14 security agencies. So most of these agencies, they don't work hand in hand. They work in silos. The military will feel superior than the police. The police will feel superior than the intelligence agents. So the intelligence agents will feel superior than the correctional officers. So it's like that. They are not working in harmony and there is no database. More so, the consciousness of the security operative must be improved. Training and training, memory and memory training of the security agencies have to be improved by the government. Then the responsibility of various intelligence agencies. As in Nigeria, we have what they call IC, which is Intelligence Community. The DIA, that's Defense Intelligence Agency, they are saddled to gather military intelligence outside Nigeria and within Nigeria. Then the DSS are saddled with the domestic intelligence within the shore of Nigeria. While the NIA are saddled with only civilian intelligence outside the shores of Nigeria. They have to work hand in hand, harmonize together so that they can win the enemy of the state. Next slide, please. The failure of the Nigerian government and its security agencies. The security agencies fail to forestall security lapses in Nigeria. As I said earlier, they are always reactive instead of being proactive in nature. More so, they lack effective coin operation, which means counter-insurgency operation. Prevention methods, preparedness response are very low. And all these are the hallmark of timely and achievable information about targets. In addition, Inability of the government and the security agencies to combat the basic threats to national security. There are 5 basic threats to national security. If all these threats are not curtailed timely, the threats are threat of sabotage, which means willful damage of government properties, terrorism, creation of fears and coerce people, insurgency. The aim is to overthrow the legitimate government. Espionage, this is to spy the government, to spy. Then the subversion is to undermine the legitimate government. These are the 5 basic threats to national security. There are threats of sabotage, terrorism, insurgency, espionage, and subversion. If all these threats are not curtailed timely, it will lead to insurgency in the state. Then moreover, lack of strategic, tactical operation level of intelligence sharing. The security forces, they lack the requisite of intelligence sharing among themselves. So it gives them this fallback to curtail the menace of insurgency and terrorism. The issue of egocentrism must be condemned by the government. No doubt, if there is harmony, it will foster the relationship and there will be a security liaison and strengthen their relationship with all the security agencies to combat the menace of insurgency. Now, recommendation. The study recommends the implementation of a community policing method as another realistic paradigm shift towards counterinsurgency and terrorism strategy. The recommendation is that if there is an implementation of community policing, in Nigerian states now, we don't have local police. You only have federal police. You don't have state police. You don't have the local government police or municipal police, as it's called in another country. So, and they have been agitating for this, that they should establish the local police, that's municipal police, so that they will get to the root of the matter. They can get the criminal within their neighborhood. So that's number 1 point. Then 2, the government and the security should engage the masses in community sanitization. There must be a sanitization. They must sanitize the entire citizen, right from the tertiary institution through this their agency like NOA, that's a National Rotation Agency, Federal Road Safety Commission. We have some agencies that are saddled with this. They should sanitize the people. Tell them that not to join Boko Haram is wrong, it's not good, it's an evil thing. Be law abiding, right from tertiary institution up to the workplace. So this one too will reduce the involvement of the innocent people joining the Boko Haram insurgent group. Now, in some way, this presentation, we are looking at insurgency from 3 perspectives, from global, regional, and national. From global, I cited 3 examples. I used 3 countries as a case in point, which are the United Kingdom, Sri Lanka, and France. Now, all these developed nations, nationally, globally, they use timely and accurate intelligence to curtail the menace. But Kenya and Nigeria are still facing they are still battling with the long war of insurgents over a decade now, because they lack the timely and accurate intelligence to curtail the menace of these insurgents. Then again, I clarify, because most scholars, students, professionals, they always misconcept these 2 words, terrorism and insurgency. So I'm able to differentiate. There are 2 different things, though there are 2 sides of a coin, but they mean different. Terrorism as a whole, basically, is a specific form of clandestine, undeclared, and unconventional warfare, waged without any humanitarian rules. Why insurgency is a form of a rebellion, in which a dissident faction that has the support of a substantial part of the population instigates the commission of widespread acts of civil disobedience, sabotage, terrorism, and wages guerrilla warfare in order to overthrow the legitimate government. We have to get it right. Terrorism aim is to create panic, fear, to make the citizen panic and fear, and looks as if the government is not doing nothing. The government cannot protect them. Then why insurgency aim is to change the legitimate government using terrorism itself, sabotage, subversion, etc. The aim of insurgent group is to overthrow the legitimate government. Though terrorism and insurgency are two sides of a coin, but they are different. So in my conclusion, terrorism is a subset of insurgency. Thank you very much. End of the slide. Thank you for your attention. God bless you all. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kalbeni, for your interesting presentation. Colleagues, I'm going to open this up for discussion. Are there any questions? Are there any comments on Mr. Kalbeni's presentation? And let me give Wade an opportunity and then I'll go to you, Rob.
Hi, sir. I hope you're well. I really enjoyed your presentation. On the 23rd, I'll be focusing on, honestly, a lot of the issues that have been covered over the last few days. I find it so interesting that the topics that we are talking about tends to build on each other, and it builds this framework of information. And I hope that for people watching, it will give a wonderful opportunity to understand these issues from so many perspectives and from so many disciplines. My question actually relates to, well, with my topic, I'm going to be doing terrorism, and I'll touch on violent extremism. And I couldn't help but notice that there were many overlaps between what was described as insurgency. And so basically, if I could ask you a question, for my understanding, I would humbly request, what would you say is the difference between insurgency and violent extremism in that case? Or is it the same thing?
Yes. Can I go ahead?
Yes, sir. You can go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma. Thank you. Basically, insurgency, the aim of insurgency is to overthrow the legitimate government. While other violence extremism is to create panic, fear, to coerce the citizen and make the government look like as if the government is not working, the government cannot protect the citizen. So that's the difference. But the insurgency aim is to overthrow the legitimate government.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would also like to thank you for your presentation and for your profound understanding of the subject. Information really plays an important role in all the decisions, and it's not possible, well, just to move further without assessing different sources and just taking into consideration what's going on in one or the other subject. And at the same time, speaking about terrorism as the unfortunate drawback of our contemporary existence, I would like to mention that it is linked with money laundering and other aspects of economic and financial activity of our countries, of our economic entities. If we are living in the cyber world and thinking about cybersecurity and cyber activity is also a source of information, what do you think as far as the mechanism of implementation of your proposals is concerned? Is it possible to use blockchains in the activity? Thank you.
You can go ahead, say, and respond.
Thank you. So what's the question? The main question?
I will repeat.
I may get your question.
The question is.
Can I get your question?
Terrorism is linked with money laundering and the activity of economic entities in different spheres. Sometimes that goes out of law. Is it possible to use blockchain as the mechanism of the activity of different authorities and participants of the market to submit us with definite rules and sources of information?
Did you get that, sir?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. I didn't get your question properly. It's breaking.
The use of
Hello?
blockchain. Can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you better now. Yes.
Okay,
I can hear you better.
Probably we'll keep online and I will put my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mr. Fagili. So from your experience of insurgency
Good afternoon.
and terrorism, what would be some practical suggestions towards ending the reign of Boko Haram?
Oh, thank you very much. First and foremost, based on my experience in the job as a detective over 2 decades, and what we've read so far, and the research I've conducted so far, there are 2 types of approaches, the soft and the hard. The soft approach, which includes negotiation, then good economy. The government should first negotiate with the insurgent group, then do the right thing. There must be a good leverage for every citizen to enjoy the social amenities. Then the other approach, they use the military efforts, then timely and accurate intelligence to curtail their menace. If government should use all these soft and hard approach together simultaneously, the insurgents will be a thing of past in the Nigeria states. Because the insurgent group, they feel oppressed, they feel marginalized, that the government is not doing the right thing. So based on that, they still persist. Apart from religious, insurgency deals with socio-economic in the Nigerian states. It deals with socio-economic. The social amenities, they are not enjoying it, especially the northern part of the country. They are not enjoying it. If you go to the northern part of Nigeria, you weep for the Nigerian states. No socio-economic is not, no government presence is felt in the northern part of the country. And we've written to the government, times is that number, do the right thing, let all the social amenities, let it be even distribution. There is uneven distribution of resources also. And nepotism, godfatherism, all this should be abolished. When the government do the socio-economic and the citizen, they felt the impact of the government, it will reduce the activities of these insurgents. Then the other approach to complement that, to deal with anybody that want to go outside the shop. It will be like carrot, stick and carrots. So using these 2 methods simultaneously, it will help to end the menace of insurgency in the Nigerian state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments, colleagues? Let me see if there's anything on the online chat. There's a comment there. Josia, do you want to make your submission, please?
Yes. Can you hear me? Good afternoon.
Yes, we can.
Thank you so very much for the presentation. It was really very interesting. I would like to know, I have 3 questions. Yeah, one is the intelligence system, do they take into account extreme poverty and violation of basic human rights, which can lead or which is the reason for extremism and insurgency? That's one question. Engaging in addressing these rights of communities and upholding rights of violated group, can it also contribute to addressing intelligence and counterterrorism? For me, Sri Lanka case was an interesting, and how do we see this in their context? Can soft engagement can reduce terrorism? That's first set of my question. The second one is how faith groups can positively contribute to intelligence to address terrorism, which is caused due to religious conflicts. The third question is how many women are engaged in intelligence collection in this sector?
The first question, can you rephrase your first question, please? Your first question, just summarize it.
Yeah, summarizing is basically I'm saying how much when we are collecting intelligence, do you also take into account the extreme poverty and not upholding rights, human rights, leads to these kind of extremism and insurgency? That is my first question. So is that any discussion around that? Yeah, the second question is how faith groups or faith leaders can contribute in addressing extremism, which is raising in the context of religious terrorism. That's my second question. And third is how much of women engaged as intelligence reporters, collectors, etc.
Okay. Thank you very much. If I get you right, you said how much the poverty and human rights affect the religious extremism rights. If I get you right. Hello?
Yeah, first question is to do with how much poverty and human rights violation leads to terrorism and insurgency.
Yes, thank you very much. As I said earlier, I said the basic problem or challenges of insurgency in the Nigerian state is socio-economic, which poverty is under it. You understand? In the northern part of the Nigerian states, there is a lot of poverty in the land. The northern part of the country is not well developed. So the poverty have contributed immensely to the activities of the insurgent group. That's number one. Then human rights. Nigeria as a state, we don't obey human rights. Because human rights has been violated since more than 20 decades. There's nothing like human rights. Police can arrest you and detain you for one month. Nothing can be done. You can only be protesting. There's nothing. So the issue of human rights is another problem too. The Nigerian government and the security forces, they don't obey human rights. They don't give rights to humans. They don't care about that. That has been the intractable problem, conflict in Nigerian states. There's nothing like rights. If you like cry crocodile, shed crocodile tears, nobody listens to you about that. So this, as you said, these are the problem of persistent insurgency in the Nigerian states. But extreme poverty is high in the northern, but it's only in the northern part of the country. The other regions are fine. It's only the northern part. That's that. Then number two, you asked about Boko Haram group, that there is religious is the factor. No, I may tell you gladly that Boko Haram insurgency is not only religious. It's not only religious. It's ideology, it's socio-economic problem. Right from my findings of my well-researched thesis. It's not only religious problem. The basic problem is socio-economic, uneven distribution of resources, nepotism, corruption in Nigerian state. Before you get a job with the federal government, you must know somebody have to recommend you. You must know somebody. Like now, you must know Professor Gopa. Professor Gopa must give you letter before they will employ you. If you don't give you letter, nobody will employ you, even though you are first-class student. I'm just using that as an example. You must know someone. You must know someone that knows someone. So, and the favor, and in Nigeria state too, we don't believe in Nigeria as a whole. We believe in where you come from, your origin, your ethnic background, your identity. We don't believe in one Nigeria. Like in a developed nation, America is America. Irrespective of any state you come from. Doesn't matter. Once you're an American, you're an American. They'll give you all the rights and the privileges. But in my state, in my country, is not the reverse is the case. You have to come from Hausa Fulani, or you have to come from a particular tribe before they will favor you. Otherwise, a graduate, will be looking for a job for 10 years or 7 years. You don't get it. You don't have the connection. So that's that. So I disagree with religion is not the main cause, though it's a part of it. But the main cause of Boko Haram insurgency in Nigeria is socio-economic. Then the last question, you are talking of how to gather intelligence, Abby, different forms. Basically, there are 5 forms of intelligence gathering. We call it direction, collection, processing, feedback, dissemination. Direction is a process whereby the intelligence chief will tell his subordinate, okay, this is what I want. Go and get information. Okay, I need the information about the Boko Haram, their hideouts in Gombe State, for instance. I need the hideout of Boko Haram. That's direction. You give them what you want. Then the collection, then the field officers, the detectives, they'll go on field using their sources and agencies and using different form of intelligence gathering to gather the information. They will now process it using 3 closely related items. In processing, we have what they call collation, evaluation, and interpretation. Then from there, they'll get a feedback. Okay, what the director asked them to get, the intelligence chief, does it meet up with it? They will analyze it. The feedback or analysis, they call it feedback/analysis. They will analyze it. Before they will not disseminate it, they will not disseminate it to the end user. The end user, our end user can be the government. It can be another agency. Then another problem in intelligence gathering in Nigeria, there is no database. We don't have database. The police are doing their own, they have their own database. The military has their own database. It's not connected. There's no connectivity in their database. That's number 1. Then number 2, there is no synergy in working in harmony and peaceful. There's no synergy. Everybody, all the security agencies work in silos. They work in silos. And ego boosting. The military in Nigeria, they feel superior than the police and the intelligence agents. The military in Nigeria, they feel superior, that they are superior more than the intelligence agents. But in a developed nation, it's not like that. American army, they don't feel superior than the FBI or the CIA. They all work together, they are one. But in our country, especially in Africa, we have egocentrism, ego boosting, which is causing problem. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I don't know, maybe I could to answer your question.
Thank you very much for your responses, sir. Colleagues, any other follow-up questions or any other questions? Okay, it looks like there are no more questions or comments. Let me take this opportunity to thank you, Mr. Fabeni, for your presentation.
Thank you, ma. Thank you, ma.
Have a lovely afternoon. Colleagues, this brings us to the end of today's session. One of the things that I'm picking up is that we are beginning to see some synergy between presentations. And it will be interesting to see at the end of the conference what actually emerges. And I think it's a good thing when we begin to see these images, because then it means we are participating within the theme of the conference. For our online participants, I just want to say thank you on behalf of the team for your interest and participation in the program. You will note that tomorrow's program is a closed program, so please do not run away. We want to see you join us on Wednesday when we continue with the open program. So with that, I just want to say thank you very much for your participation. Thank you.